where the YouTube chat is because of the amount of streams that have been started. So, can we get a confirmation?
Which one?
Yeah.
Good. Very good. Come on,
yeah.
Okay, it's back
I'm
on.
looking too.
let's get a
No
confirmation
chat.
from chat that they can hear you guys, because, like I said, I can see your levels going up. Not sure why.
I opened up the YouTube stream and I can hear audio.
Okay.
Can you hear people beyond Rocco?
The thing is,
Yeah.
people can hear us. Yeah.
You can hear audio, right?
Yeah, let me check to see if I hear anybody but you.
Yes, please, because that would be important.
Yeah, I can hear Tyler, so we should be good.
Okay.
Okay.
Already.
Wow. I don't know what happened there,
Wow.
but okay. So,
There we go.
Peter, they didn't hear you when you
Yeah,
talked about.
I'm hearing us too now.
Okay.
So let's go again, Peter. Tell us what you think of 1910.
Okay, I'm just sorry. I'm watching YouTube there. Mine says chat is disabled, but that's all messed up. So Ubuntu MATE works. I could use it. I didn't fully test it. I did install it on the machine behind me, the Dell 755, but works fine. I like it. And that's all I've got.
That's all you got. All right, Eris, how about you, brother? Did you try it?
Yes. I was very excited to try Mate. I had used it for a long time, and sadly to say, I was always a little bit disappointed because of all the bugs with the brisk menu. It was always crashing on me. But this time I didn't get any crashes once I updated to the all the updates. So at the beginning, I think the brisk menu did crash on me a few times, but once I updated, I never got another crash, which was kind of like the first time.
So,
and yes,
I was just going to ask you, Eris, when you mean updated, so after you installed 1910, did you just run like regular updates, and then after that, you didn't have the problem with brisk anymore? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
It went away from me. I heard from some other people that there was crashing, but I can never had another crash. I tried all the brisk menus, like the one that's like kind of like Unity, that never crashed on me. I tried the other one that's like kind of like the whisker menu on XFC. That also was fine, and it was rock solid. I never got one crash, I think, after that.
Wonderful.
The only thing I did find a couple bugs. One bug is really hard for me to get going again, and that's I use the Firefox the Snap, and sometimes there's a transparent kind of like can barely tell it's there, like a outline around the window. So the window's shown, but there's some like a transparent outline around that window that makes the window small. I'm not sure why that happens, and it's not every single time, but sometimes when I start Firefox using the Snap, it does that. And that's never happened to me with any other distro. It has happened to me with Mate more in the past, but it was always there. Now it just comes and goes. I'm not sure what that's about. Another bug I found is that if you install the GNOME software, I use the boutique. I don't know if that matters. I don't think so. But I installed the GNOME software, and once it's tried to get on the information, it wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work. You couldn't see the installed programs. You couldn't search for anything. But once I restarted the computer, it just worked. So I'm not sure what that's about. And I tried getting to reload everything. I closed the application, turned it back on, and it wouldn't work until I restarted the computer.
Yeah, that is a known issue right now, and hopefully we'll have some. As you can see, Martin isn't here because he's gallivanting around the world.
Yes.
So we'll try to get that out on a little bit of a note. But yeah, if you install GNOME software, you have from the software boutique, you have to reboot for it to populate.
And I like Mate. I used it for many days, and I came really close to deleting Ubuntu and transferring over to Mate. But then I fell in love again with Plasma, and I didn't switch over. I found out you can put the HUD into Plasma, and at the end of it.
Nice.
But overall, very good. every little paper cut's pretty much gone for me, except for like these little things, and it's so much better than before.
Yep. Well, I didn't actually install it on this machine because obviously this is the main machine, and I've been rearranging things, so I lost my test machine for the moment. I have the laptops back there, but in moving everything around, I didn't get a chance to install it. But I did go through the upgrade process on my dad's computer, and that went pretty much flawless as far as the upgrade process itself. So everything that it said it was going to do did, and it did it without any errors, without any problems, rebooted, and everything was perfect. Except for one or two programs that he had that, like for example, VMG, Virtual Magnifying Glass, is a program that he uses, and that is either no longer in the repos or it doesn't work. Moment. But it's having trouble with 1910. It won't open. So there's a message that comes up if you try to run it in the terminal. But I have yet to figure out what the problem is after many Google searches. Or I shouldn't say Google searches, many searches. And but everything else is fine. And I know there's last week I talked to Martin and Alan, and they both said there's a program called Magnus, I think it's called.
Yes, I was going to talk about it.
Well, and that's a great little program, except for the one thing that none of the other magnifying glass, virtual magnifying glass programs do is the virtual magnifying glass doesn't keep a window open. Like for the Magnus, you have a window open, and then whatever you hover over with your mouse, it magnifies. Yeah. But the virtual magnifying glass just magnifies whatever your mouse pointer's over.
Yes.
So there's no window to go around. So if you want to hover over something that's underneath the window, you can't do that. And that's why he likes virtual magnifying glass. So, and I don't blame him. I think that works better for that scenario. Plus, it has all kinds of settings where you can set the magnification and the size of what's being magnified. So it's definitely, but I ended up working on it, and I ended up taking, trying an older deb file and messing with the files, and I ended up getting it working, but it's on an older version of DMG. We'll see if we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks, if it gets updated or whatever. I don't know if there's libraries missing that weren't there from 1904 to 1910, but yeah, other than that, it's working fine.
Awesome.
By the way, Rock, if I may jump back in, after my good report, I turned around and the whole system was frozen. I had to reboot it.
Wow, that's great news. That's what happens when you go live, Peter. All right, Bash, sir.
All right. So ultimately, I ended up installing it on my laptop with the hybrid NVIDIA card on it, just to see if the switcher would end up helping me out on that, since my Mint update at one point messed that up and I'm not having external monitors work. Good news, it did end up working with the Optimus switcher. That was nice. The let's see, when I installed it, I didn't really get a chance to, or I didn't get the option to install over another distro like I usually do on some, but that may just be something weird about my partition scheme on that laptop. So it installed the 390 driver. I know this card can at least do the 410 or 415. Not a big deal, but I don't know if that's the expected behavior for the installer when it does the NVIDIA stuff or not. But anyway, a couple things that I noticed that were just odd. The scaling functionality is hidden kind of in the fonts menu, and it's really kind of hidden on how to actually get there at times. I think it may be, I know I think you see that in the theme setup, or the appearance setup rather, where you can, change around where your panels and all that is. I think you can see a note about it there on one of them, but it's just kind of, it would be nice to have another option to get there in an easier way if you're trying to find that option and not really sure where to go. And then one thing I'm really kind of not too keen on is you have Plank open, and it, from what I can tell, it always has to have its little settings options open. You can minimize them or whatever, but you always have it in the bottom bar. I can't figure out a way to get it to go away without Plank itself going away. But let's see. And then just kind of a little weird thing that I saw. I moved the buttons over to the right. I have some kind of weird setup now. I don't have one of the default layouts, but I moved the buttons over to the right, but then I opened the Plank settings menu and the button's still over on the left for the close. I just found that kind of odd when that was one of the core kind of system applications that it wouldn't adapt. I understand some others would, do their own thing, but again, just an oddity.
Can you repeat what you said about the Plank, about the problem with Plank?
Which part? The first part?
Yeah, the first part.
So whenever I'm using Plank,
yeah,
I always have one application open, and it's always the Plank, like the Plank settings. And if I right click and try to close, it's like Plank is running as an application.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's been an issue for a while.
Yeah, and I haven't really used much of Mate before, so I didn't know that was a thing. But it's just kind of weird to me that it's sitting there showing that it's running when I'm trying to figure out what it is so I can close it, and then I realize Plank's gone now. It's like, oh, okay.
That is a bug that's reported, but I think the last time I looked at it, it was said that it's not reliably reproducible. Like they don't know why it's happening or what's causing it to happen, because it doesn't happen all the time for everybody. So that's the issue with that so far.
Yeah, Vash, if you can open a ticket and put Plank and give your system specs, because you can drag. I'm trying to figure out exactly what your. So there is a little preference thing that comes that you can usually drag it off of the Plank menu, and then it'll be gone.
I'll give that a shot.
If you can't do that, and
yeah, but what you're saying, Vash, is up in the actual taskbar where it's showing your open applications, Plank's showing up there, correct?
I'm having my open application show up in Plank, and when I do that, I always have a settings Plank menu sitting there next to the other applications, and I believe it is always showing as open. I'll have to look back at it.
All right.
But overall, these are more things that I just noticed that I felt were out of place. Overall, it's been a pretty good experience. It actually cooperates with my Optimus card and the external monitors. So, that was really the main reason I was even trying it on that PC in the first place. And it did that. So I can at least use that PC again with my current desk setup, where I just don't have the computer on the desk. I have it over on the side, and I just use the external monitor and, KVM switch. That's good.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you for that. Jill, did you get a chance to try Mate?
Oh, yes. And I had played around also with the beta version as well to help, and did some bug fixing. But I was just like Rocco said, there are a few things that need to be improved with Magnus, the magnifying program. I do use them sometimes because I am half blind, and my good eye sometimes doesn't work very well at times. So I often will use that to do a lot of reading. And exactly what you said, Rocco, about the window, and you have to actually have the mouse cursor around the window to see it. But this was Wimpy's first time, I think, doing something like that with a magnifying program. But it's very stable and it works very well. And I'm sure he'll put more features in it in the future too.
Well, the thing about that is it's, you're wanting to magnify a screen, and if you only have one monitor, you have to take up
it's hard.
half of your screen with the box to magnify.
The box.
And then so it doesn't work quite as well.
Yeah. So. No, understand. Yeah, because I have other programs, including the one your father likes to use. I've used that one before. But since Compiz was removed, Wimpy had to create a new magnifier. So, and that was the replacement, was Magnus. And I was really impressed with how it worked really, really well. It still needs some improvement, but it works really well. And I noticed actually desktop performance is being greatly improved. Those fixing all those paper cuts, I think, have really, really, really helped. And I installed Ubuntu MATE 1910 on the same computer I had 1804 LTS on, and noticed a big improvement. And for instance, higher frames per second playing games on Steam, even on this older AMD APU laptop. And I'm sure it has a lot to do with the Mesa driver performance being greatly enhanced, which I know has a lot to do with the new compositor fixes and XPresent and improvements to the Marco window manager. So doing all those paper cut improvements and, changing, oh boy, the compositor has really made improvements, and I've noticed them.
So Jill, you mentioned that you did some beta testing and you gave some feedback. What were some of the things that you found?
Yeah, so the screen tearing was one that I know they were really working on trying to fix in 1910 with the older compositor. And there were still, I was noticing a few little screen tearing issues, but in this release, I haven't noticed them at all, the final release. So that was cool.
Excellent. And you just did you just log a bug, or did you what did you do to give that feedback?
I just logged a bug.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Well, there you go. Proof in testing works and giving feedback works. Yeah.
Jill, did you at all change the settings there in the Marco or anything in that? In the tweaks?
I tried to keep them, default to test it. So, but I usually go back and do that later. Yeah.
Well, I noticed there was a few more options now. So I was kind of confused on which one to use, which one would be the best. So you'd have to do, you definitely would have to do testing on it.
Yeah, definitely.
So just a quick thing on Magnus real quick. So that is giving credit. That's Stuart Langridge wrote that program.
Oh, it was Stuart. Okay.
Yes. And so Martin brought that in, but we have to give credit to Stuart for that, or he'll get mad.
Oh, cool.
Say things.
Well,
Stuart's
thank you for
awesome,
letting me know, because I thought it was Wimpy's. So
it's a great program.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well,
wonderful. Thank you, Bill.
Sounds like you're definitely getting some mileage out of Ubuntu MATE. That's fantastic. Yeah.
So, Rocco, I have a quick question for you when you ask about the window manager and the compositor program and the choices.
Yes.
So currently in 1910, you're going to only have two choices. You're going to have Marco with no compositor, or Marco with adaptive compositor. So there's only two choices in a 1910 install.
I thought there was three, Bill. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm just, remembering it wrong. But when I went into the tweaks on Dad's computer, I could have swore there was three choices.
Well, that's the upgraded one from 1904 to 1910, right?
Correct.
Okay, there might be a leftover
entry or
residual entry in there. So, but on a 1910 fresh install, you're only going to have those two choices.
Okay, that's good. Well, okay, can you do you know the big differences between the two?
So basically, if you want to use a compositor or not.
But what I'm saying is there screen tearing if you don't use the compositor, or if you do use the compositor, or which one would be what I'm saying is the confusion is which one is better?
Well, I don't think there is a better, because I think it's the whole, some people will have screen tearing with almost identical hardware, and they'll use with a compositor and everything will be great. Other people will do that same setup and they'll be screen tearing.
Yeah.
So I think that's more or less, if you use it and you have screen tearing, try the other one.
Right.
And you can go back, you can actually go and install the other stuff. It's just out of the tweak tool and not there by default on a fresh install. So that goes back to what you have with an upgrade from 1904. And I'm going to try to look to see what my upgraded version, if it does have those options. Yeah, I've got, so this is on my desktop, which is, I've got the additional options that, and this one has been upgraded from 1810 to 1904 to 1910. So those options still remain if you did an upgrade.
Okay.
So you have Marco, and you have Compiz,
Yeah.
and you have the Compton Marco, which
Right.
So those are.
So it's kind of confused on which one to put on.
Gotcha. Were they removed for a reason in 1910? Is it worth getting into that, or?
I can. So the answer is based on the testing that they weren't needed anymore, and that I can't really tell you. That's what the consensus was. So they were removed and shortened down to have the tweaks in Mate were supposedly, and in my experience, they do, are not needed. But that is way above my pay grade.
Gotcha. Okay. Fair enough.
So,
all right.
Actually, Eric, can I just go back real quick? So I'm just going to read from the extensive release notes.
Yes, please.
So there is a section about Compiz and Compton, and I'll read it verbatim. The main reason we've been shipping Compton and Compiz in Ubuntu Mate was to offer a solution to screen tearing or improve game performance. Compiz has invisible window borders and has also been a screen magnifier suitable for visually impaired users. However, and then we go down bullet points of what has been improved with Marco. And Compton, the bottom one is Compton and Compiz with Mate introduces bugs and other issues. So that is the reasoning behind its full removal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole section in there that I'm not going to read through because I don't want to bore everyone with my terrible.
Well, I think Robin in chat said that he's got 3 options from a clean install in his.
That's really weird because I actually threw a brand new install on just for the show, and I definitely only have 2.
That is weird.
Would it be possible that there's an updated ISO or something like that?
Yeah.
Or?
No, there's not an updated ISO, let's say, because 1910, there's not been a new spin of that ISO, but there could be. Let me run upgrades, and I'll get back to that point in a couple minutes.
Okay. All right.
Sorry for stealing.
Good question. No, good question.
No, it's okay. It's important.
That's what we're here for.
Good thoughts.
That's what we're here for, dude.
That's right. So, Tony, hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, thanks. And you?
Just fine, thank you. Did you get a chance to spend any time with Ubuntu Mate?
I did. It's very green.
It is.
Well, it's not going to change anytime soon.
No, I guess that. But you can theme it, obviously. But I didn't find it. I didn't find it a bad distro. It's quite likable. One of the problems I found with it was the fact that it looks a bit old-fashioned, and maybe it's the newbie in me reaching out to the surface, but I found it quite difficult to work out how to do theming and stuff on it. But once you set the basic system up and install a few bits and pieces, it does work very well. So I just like to sort of be able to theme it a bit easier and for it perhaps to look a little bit more modern. That's about all I can say about it, really. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a good distribution, but it's not really one that I would use.
It's definitely one of the more common criticisms is it's a polarizing issue, right? The Mate project comes about because of the GNOME 2 to GNOME 3 switchover. Most people are used to Ubuntu and other desktops using the GNOME 2, familiar layout that's in there. Yep. And that's, so a lot of people still identify the Linux desktop with that specific layout and that set of like the triple menu at the top, and it is very familiar in that. So calling it that is actually apropos, because when I was looking at it, that's exactly what it took me back to, was like, this is Ubuntu, 10 years ago, like just right back into it. And there is a certain amount of muscle memory and just, spatial awareness of like how you get to things. And honestly, the way it is split out, it was interesting to go back and look at that, because I haven't used it in such a long time, that it does sort of separate concerns into different areas of the screen in ways that modern DEs don't. Modern DEs tend to just jam everything on one panel and in like one area, menu, launchers, taskbar, and everything else. I'm looking at Plasma, but and so that has a very characteristic sort of layout, the way that it separates those
It's
things out.
unique.
Yeah.
It is, and people got used to that.
Yes.
And so when it was gone, it was like, whoa, wait a minute, this isn't my computer anymore. And so there's definitely that criticism of it. Just feels like it's a throwback.
Just depends what the individual person likes. I mean, look at Barbara. She loves it. She will not change, and it's going to suit some people. And that's why we've got so much choice, I think, because there's got to be something out there to suit everyone.
Yeah.
Yep.
You just have to find it.
Absolutely.
But I have to say that Martin said something about it last week about them trying to have a Nauru. Basically, I think somebody else was working on that last week, where it would include different color schemes. So that would be a good option to have. I think that
would.
I mean, no issues with green for me, as far as I can't. It's not like I wouldn't be able to use it, but there are people that just aren't. And it would be awesome to have that out of the box with them.
It would make it easier.
Yep. All right, Bill, we're going to come back to you later, maybe for some questions.
Okay.
Right. Eric, did you get to try it out?
I did. Yeah. Like I said, I just, so I didn't spend a tremendous amount of time with it. I had a lot of other stuff going on this week, but the impressions I took away from it were a couple things. So like I mentioned, the layout being a bit of a blast from the past, and in many respects, I have previously had a negative reaction to that, where I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm past this. But giving it a chance and sort of remembering like why that was an interesting layout, and particularly coming from Windows at the time, all those years ago, just being so different in the way that they approached, again, just the separation of things, and the tray over here, the menu over there, and launchers, and your window list over here, how that just sort of separates it all out into different. So you kind of knew like, oh, if I want that, I go here. So it was interesting to go back and give that another sort of fresh look. And I still don't prefer it compared to the modern paradigms, but it is interesting to revisit it. And then, of course, with the tweak tool, you can choose any of the layouts you want. And not only the tweak tool, but something else that I tried to do was look at it from a fresh perspective of, I don't know this desktop environment, or this system. Like, so what am I getting whenever I first boot in? And so the welcome screen, I think, is particularly well done. And all the way from the theming, there are theming. You can change themes and things in there. You can change layouts in there.
Right.
So all of the things that are in Tweak are essentially also presented to you there as well. I really like the Software Boutique, and it's a curated set of apps where I found probably 90% of all of the things that I would normally install were just already there, and I could just go through and select them. So I thought that was a very nice touch. Having all of the documentation, it's a very comprehensive and I think fairly user-friendly approach to, if you're new to this, we're going to give you all the resources that you sort of need to get started, and here's some great software, and here's some. So from that perspective, I think it was great. But then maybe someone who's more of a power user or more familiar, you've got all of the underlying system tools with the tweaks and the configuration options and things like that. And it's great. Caja is a great file manager. It has a lot of the same capabilities as like Nemo and Dolphin, which are my other sort of favorite file managers. The default set of applications is a pretty reasonable set of tools. It sort of covers all the bases of everything you'd need. And, I think it's got that amount of care and attention that people look at this and people use it and people think about, like the paper cuts, right? I mean, you can definitely see that was a priority. Things should just work and should make sense if it's there. Why is it there? Should it be there? Shouldn't it be there? You can tell those types of questions were pondered. So yeah, good stuff.
Hey, Eric, can I?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Rocco.
No, go ahead, Bill.
So you mentioned something about the welcome screen, and we've had a couple things about theming. And one of the major changes for this release is on the welcome screen. There's something called desktop layout.
Mm-hmm.
And before you would go into tweaks and you just have this little box drop down. And here, if you hit desktop layout, it shows you what your desktop is going to look like. And that's a selling feature. It's something that was worked on hard. So you can go in immediately and go, oh, what does Cupertino look like? Oh, here it is. What does Familiar look like? What does Mutiny look like? And you can just choose them right out of the welcome screen and have an idea of what you're going to get. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
You mean like the screenshot that Hank has for his picture?
Yes.
Hank is very handy. He's been following along.
It's not even a screenshot, it's live.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's awesome, Hank. I love it. But, look, it's always been, for me, Ubuntu MATE is it's the distro that is the fastest for me to be able to go from install to using with all of the things that go with it, including the software boutique and just checking boxes and hitting install. It makes it super easy to set up somebody else's computer when you have all of that.
Yeah. And it's one of the main distros I give to my students, show my students, because it also works really well on older hardware. And that is one of the reasons why it looks old school. is it's refined to work on older hardware. And it's why I used my older laptop to install and test.
And I did install the Yahoo themes just from the repository to see how it would work. And you get some of it, but it's not complete.
Right. Yeah.
So I think Tony has it's a fair assessment to say, like, theming is not as straightforward as it is in other desktop.
Yeah, definitely. Right. That was always an issue with the older GNOME. So I always I don't like having two taskbars. I always put everything in one and just get rid of one. I've always done that. Yeah.
All right, Tyler, you're up.
All right. So a couple of days ago, I threw it on my old ThinkPad. First impression is always, oh, this looks familiar. I used to use GNOME 2 on Ubuntu way back. And the other thing that strikes me is that the default theme is getting a bit long in the tooth. I remember when Ambiance was introduced in regular Ubuntu back in 2010. So it is nearing a decade old now. So the theme does feel a bit old, which kind of going to the theming discussion. Theming on MATE isn't, especially now that it's GTK3, is going to be a bit hit or miss because I installed GTK3 theme. But the issue I run into is that because not a lot of these GTK3 theme developers are taking into account MATE, it might be missing things like there's no Metacity theme. So you can get the theme, but you're not going to get the title bar theme to go with it. Because they're just thinking Gnome's automatically going to pick that up, as is Budgie, or even Pantheon in elementary is going to pick that up. But MATE, because it's using a different application for drawing the title bar, then it's going to not be taken into account for. As far as customization, I'm not a fan of the old GNOME panel for dock-like functions. So instead of going for the Mutiny layout, I ended up going with the Cupertino layout and moving Plank to the left. Some of the other things, when I went to either the Mutiny or the Cupertino layout, it changes the brisk menu to the full screen layout, and I don't know why I'm not a fan of brisk full screen layout. But there's not really an easy configuration panel to go and change that for brisk. I ended up having to go into deconf to change its layout and then re-add it to the panel. I felt that was a bit cumbersome just to change a small preference like that, as well as adding text to the next to the brisk icon. And even changing the icon for brisk, a lot of menu applications and desktop environments will allow me to change the icon to whatever I want.
Right.
I have a little weird naming scheme for computers on my network. I'll go with different Pokemon names that I've used in playthroughs over the years. So I always like these little icon version of that, and with either the menu or something within the machine to indicate, oh yeah, this is that computer. I actually had to replace a file in the icon theme to change the icon of the brisk menu. I felt, again, that was another cumbersome item that I had to do to kind of get the customizations that I wanted. So that, to me, just didn't feel complete. Going back to the theming issues, I noticed that I don't know if it was Firefox was having an issue with Metacity or whatever, but when I would use certain GTK3 themes, I couldn't use the title bar list setting in Firefox. That gave me issues. It would still show the full title bar and waste that vertical screen real estate that I was trying to save. I don't know if that's an issue with Metacity, with an Ubuntu MATE, or Firefox just not recognizing that, but that was one of those paper cuts that I had. Otherwise, for some of the more traditional layouts, it worked great, but for a lot of the specific configurations I was trying to do, it was either a bit cumbersome or just didn't really work out for me. But otherwise, it's great distribution. It's based on Ubuntu 19.10. It works great. It has all the software I need to install out of the box. Just for my use case, it didn't work for what I wanted.
Yeah.
Hey,
well,
Tyler, go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to touch on a couple things that Tyler mentioned. Recently, within the past, I guess, 6 months, Martin was given access to the brisk menu by the Solus group.
Okay.
So he is making some changes to the brisk menu. And if you've seen, one of the biggest complaints with MATE was the brisk menu crashed a lot. And that has been significantly reduced. There's still occasional crashes.
I didn't see any issues with crashing. It was stable. It's just in terms of the configuration, that's where I ran into the issues.
So you obviously have to go into deconf editor to do a lot of things. And now that he has admin rights to that GitHub repository, I think you're going to see a lot more stuff coming into Brisk because he's going to be able to do that.
Okay. I look forward to that then.
One of the things that you mentioned was changing the icon. So that was a decision that was made within MATE so that whatever icon you choose, whether you're using advanced MATE menu or Brisk, you're going to get that icon.
Okay.
And that's for the theme developers. So as a user, you just have to go in and make an icon change. I can get you a link later. Someone has actually written up a script that will go, if you want to use this, it'll boom, run the script, and it'll change the icon. That
I imagine the script is just replacing the file that I replaced in whatever icon theme I was using.
Yeah, it's I can't remember offhand. It's like hold on, I'll tell you what the icon is.
I know I did it the other day, so
my brain is fried, but I can't.
Something symbolic is the one I had to replace.
Yeah,
in my icon theme.
I can find out, but yeah, that was the design decision so that the icons are the same between if you change menus. And that I'll tell you, that is a complaint that we do see frequently, that people aren't happy with that. And maybe there'll be a change when there's some more modifications to the Brisk menu functionality for user theming, that maybe we just pop up a menu and do some of that stuff.
And I'm pretty sure my use case is a bit more esoteric than others. I will recognize that fact.
We all have.
Yeah.
Everybody does things differently. There's no one that runs anything except for Adam Grubbs out of the box.
He is the default man. Just saying.
Yes. All right. Excellent. Anything else, Tyler?
Oh yeah, one thing I did forget to mention is I did end up installing Compiz just because, again, I used to use GNOME 2 on Ubuntu back then, so there are a lot of the Compiz effects on that I used back in the day that I still appreciate,
Wobbly
or
windows.
that even have KWin equivalents that I still use to this day in KWin. So
Wobbly windows, right?
well of course.
the flame, when you minimize.
So cool.
So yeah, I'm sure Jill
for
I'm
applications
sure
that
you
bother you.
as an animator appreciated all of that, right?
Yes. I love the cube spinning. It excited
Oh yeah, the
my
desktop cube. I remember that.
Yeah.
You're like, all right.
That was awesome.
All right. Excellent. Thanks, Tyler. So we have Mr. Nate, and is it Cubicle Mate today?
Cubicle Mate?
No.
Cubicle Mate?
Cubicle Mate.
Cubicle Mate. That's a good one, Eric.
Yeah, good call. So I've liked Mate pretty much since I first started using Ubuntu Mate. Not as my primary, not as like my go-to, but I've had such an appreciation for the project. Now, it's a couple of caveats. Original GNOME I thought was terrible, so I never liked that layout. But what I do like is that you can choose between those 4 layouts, and I think we kind of beat that horse quite a bit. But the fact that you can use, I can, starting it up with double click, I can use the Redmond, the proper desktop layout. There's basically only one proper desktop layout. So
obviously,
I like that. I mean, the Mutiny's good. I mean, it's fine. The Cupertino, you'd have to pay me to use. But
how much?
But like a lot. We're talking at least 2 figures.
Okay.
Anyway, so I really like the Redmond layout. It feels comfortable. Like if I go into that's how it's set up. It feels like a good desktop. I'm perfectly content there. I'm as content there as I would with XFCE. Although it uses a few hundred more megabytes than XFCE does. Not a big deal. I mean, when you have a lot of head space, it's fine. And also I want to say that I am not generally a fan of any of these software centers, boutiques. Like that's really not what I like. I'll always test them out because that I feel that's customary. But I think there's something special about the Mate software boutique. I mean, even like the animations, the transparencies, how it kind of like it's like you're presented with like an experience. I don't know if Henky, can you do that? Oh, look at it. See if you look at his. See how that just kind of. Thank you, Henky. But see how like the way it presents itself. It's like you're it's like a theatrical performance. It's it's enjoyable to use. It's a real well done piece of software. I mean, really everything else it works fine. I can install Telegram or Discord, or I didn't try Cura, but I would like to do that. But it works. You got the Ubuntu base to it, so there's really you're not going to have generally problems. And there's something, and Mate just seems to be very stable too. Like, seems like some desktop environments. Let's not point fingers at anybody. Let's say the 2 big guys, KDE and GNOME. Sometimes it seems like over the life cycle of a static distribution, sometimes they can get a little ropey toward the end. Have you ever noticed that? Or is that just me that notices that?
Ropey.
Sometimes like things will just get a little.
You make too many changes, and all of a sudden things get a little weird. Yeah,
something like that. Mm-hmm. But I've never had that with Mate. Not that I've used it extensively, but I do use it on a Pine 64, and it just seems to just keep going and chugging. It doesn't seem to get weird over a period of time, and so I kind of look at Mate as being like like you do, Rocco. You install it for your dad, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a safe bet.
It is.
You put that on your dad's system. It's a safe bet. You don't have to think about it. It kind of has that same Mint kind of safe betness to it. That's not a real word. I made that up.
Yep. You did.
Anyway, and so that's kind of how I look at Mate. It's not for me, but I think it's really good. You can't go wrong with going Mate. That's just how I feel. It's I've never noticed any pixels being out of place with it ever. The theming is not, I think, as Tyler was saying, it seems a little bit older. You did, but I don't mind that. I mean, I think it's fine. It's but I look at it from a more utilitarian perspective, and to me, I think it's great. I think it looks better than Windows 10. So that if we're using Windows 10 as our baseline, that if it has to be at least that, then we're golden with Mate.
Well, just like Jill, I have no problem recommending it to other people, as I can recommend Ubuntu Mate to somebody. I have no issues or worries that it work, or it's going to be too hard. It's basically like, Ron Popeil, set it and forget it. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the way you feel about it.
And I have a couple of those, by the way, so you know.
There you go. But I did notice even though there was stuff done to the icon, as far as like different sizes and taskbar and whatnot, there is still one or two applications that don't size right, along with other like you'll have so many applications running in the system tray or right next to it, and all of them are the same size except for like one or two. And I actually think private internet access, those ones, really small compared. So there are still issues that may need to work out, but you can see that the improvement is there, because it used to be 3/4 of the icons were different sizes, and some of them were big and some of them were. Now it's only like one or two. So you definitely see improvement. The one thing I did notice that, I mean, and maybe it's just me and a lack of not knowing what to do with it, but the little mail notification in the taskbar, I didn't find an easy way to shut that off. If you close that, you close the whole notification, or if you remove it, you remove the whole notification applet. There's no way to specifically stop the actual mail notification unless somebody can help me out, because I would.
So,
Bueller?
Rocco, which one? So
For
if
the
you
Thunderbird
upgraded,
mail.
so you probably have two if you upgraded your data from 1904.
Yep.
So you probably have the new one, and then you probably have a little mail. Unfortunately, one of the things you have to do with the indicator is go into startup applications and disable the specific indicator. And right now, those are not super well documented. And
I went into the startup applications, Bill, and I did not see that. Like, I forget what it exactly is called. Is the mail something or other? I did not see that starting up. So that's one thing I did check to go and uncheck that, but it still starts up along with I mean, I guess it's part of the applet itself, but if you don't want it there, there's no way to turn that off.
Yeah, that's one of the problems with the indicator applet complete, is it doesn't really give you the modularity from like a right click perspective.
Right.
Which is one of the things that, or like an overflow that KDE offers you, that you can put into an overflow on the panel, or Windows 10 or Windows. I think that's something that is a really big want to have, but it opens up a big can of Windows, because then you change the entire way that the panel works, and that may be a future. And if people would, open bugs and say that they don't like this, that maybe there's a better indication that these levels are showing up when people look at bug reports, and that may motivate more people to do things. Just saying.
Yeah, agreed.
That was all I had. I really enjoy it. So it's good. And yes, Alan, it's great on my Pine 64.
We may get into those.
All right. Well, excellent.
Yay.
Hey, look, it's Mr. Grubbs.
Yay,
What
Adam.
do you know?
What up, guys?
How you doing?
He's in a submarine.
I'm all right, man. Just, chilling out, yeah.
He's at red alert.
Yes.
And instead of manning my battle station, I'm here on Biddle. So
there you go.
Ever the team player. So I actually did a little during the tail end of the beta stuff. I did actually take a look at Ubuntu MATE. It was pretty neat. I thought it was really fast, like way felt like really fast. But I remember hyping up the whole was it Marco as the window manager, so like the compositor. So there's all this hype about screen tearing and everything, and man, I got a lot of screen tearing. A lot of it, like whole window was tearing like really bad. And I thought, well, okay, maybe it's because I had two displays, and they're identical displays, so they're sync, same vertical sync and everything. But as I disconnected one of my displays, and sure enough, the other one was tearing just as much. I did a little bit of digging, and the XPresent extension that they made changes to doesn't affect the NVIDIA proprietary driver. The NVIDIA proprietary driver doesn't adhere to that same extension. So the screen tearing benefits that Marco now has don't apply to a proprietary NVIDIA card. At least that seems to be the case.
Always NVIDIA that messes things up, huh?
Yeah. So, and again, I'm sure there'll be people, well, I have NVIDIA and I don't have it. Okay, fine. Yeah. But with my card and my monitors, like it was not good. And that pretty much counted it off entirely, because it was not just a slight tear. I mean, we're talking full, like constant tear, like a rolling tear, like the where it would tear on the screen would roll and everything.
Wow.
Also, it suffered from the same audio bug that all the Ubuntu seem to face. And you set the audio settings and then you reboot and they all just set back.
Yep.
That's incredibly annoying. I did not like that. But that's not Mate's fault, from what I gathered. That's a Pulse Audio thing. So, as always, right?
As always.
So Simon's going to fix that, right?
Of course.
No, it'll never be fixed. You should give up on that.
After we sent him on that mission, he hasn't been back on Biddle. So he must have got lost.
Yep. Like I said, never be fixed. No, but it was a good experience. I liked the HUD that they added in. That was one of my favorite features about Unity, and having that available was pretty awesome. The green, there's a lot of green, but I'm good with green. Green's fine. But it was the main thing that struck me was just how blazing fast it was. And I had Vanessa take a look at it, and she really liked the welcome screen. She liked the software boutique and everything. So I thought that was kind of neat, just a little extra, other user thing going on there. But yeah, it was, other than the audio and issues and the horrible screen tearing, it seemed like just a really fast version of Linux.
Well, I remember you remarking at the time, because you were actually running through the betas and trying different, seeing what the speed of the game's performance and stuff like that was. And I remember you specifically calling out Mate as being...
Yeah, Mate was very, easily, 5 frames a second faster, at least, than the rest of them.
Yeah.
But again, lots of tearing. But
yeah,
right.
If I didn't have the tearing and I had the same performance, oh man, that'd be great. But yeah.
Cool, Adam. Yeah, see, I didn't have any tearing with AMD, but that was an old. I'm using it on an old AMD APU laptop, and it was fine. I haven't tested it on any of my NVIDIA cards.
Yeah. Yeah, and those likely support that XPresent extension. And,
yes.
Yeah.
I noticed how beautiful it really had improved with XPresent.
And Adam, you have a 2080, right?
1080 Ti.
1080, okay.
1080 Ti, they're different.
All right. Well, that's great feedback, and maybe that's something that someone can take a look at. So,
yeah.
All right, Big Pod, good to see you, sir. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Did you get a chance to test Ubuntu Mate?
No, haven't tested it yet. it's just downloading on my second machine, so up
Okay.
until middle, the normal one, I will test it.
Okay.
Test
All right.
somewhat.
Sounds good. All right. Well, we'll skip Hanky because we know he didn't do anything with Mate. So.
Aw. Thank you,
what
Hanky,
is
for
up,
having
brother?
it. Yeah, having it
Yes,
shown.
well, excited to be back here with Ubuntu MATE, as you guys have been seeing.
Can I ask
I
you
was
how you got
interested
that in
because
Zoom?
I remembered GNOME 2 as the thing that I liked way more than GNOME 3, but crashed all the time every time I rebooted it, and I had things breaking all over the place. That's what I expected. That is what I got, because when I booted into my snapshot, this happened. This is the menu crash that you guys were talking about. And I get this by plain rebooting, but I can also get it by switching through the themes. Other things I got greeted with was the amazing welcome center that we talked about before. That has quite a few default modes. Personally, I like the Redmond one the best, but what I'm missing is a Windows 7 style one. This is more Windows XP style, where you have your pinned icons and then the active tasks. I like a hybrid of that where I can just pin the task and it's just in an icon view. I'm not sure if it's possible with Mate, but that's what I'm missing as a Windows 7 workflow user. The other one I liked was that I got greeted with this thing. And this is the software update center, and it actually prompted me to install the updates. And I heard things about automatic updates before in the discussion, should we have that, should we not have that? So I dived into the settings here. And in the settings, you have your options of automatically installing the updates and what it should do. And what I noticed is that there's no automatic installation option for the other updates. It's only for security updates. Now, what I'd personally like to see from the Ubuntu team is to also have an optional option to activate on the other updates so that I can set it on family member PCs and they never get greeted with any update message at all. It just does it for them. I personally have scripts to do that, but it would be nice to offer it to the wider community to this selection menu. So if you guys can implement that in future releases, I think that would be helpful for the average grandma user that you don't want to support every week to see if she installed the updates or not. Other than that, I've been diving into Ubuntu 19.10 as a whole to see if the gripes that I had with 18.04 have been resolved, and they're still pretty much all there. The biggest gripe that I'm having with that is on my servers, where the boot partition that the VPS provider gives me is really, really small. It's 100 megs, which means I can fit barely 2 kernels on there, and then I get out of disk issues, and the update will try to install them anyway, and the installation will fail. If I then try to remove one, it will first try to install them again, and it will fail, and then that whole update stack crashes. So what I'd like to see in future is that it checks if there's enough disk space, optionally removes old ones automatically, and otherwise just doesn't try to install them if there's not enough space. And that's my biggest gripe with Ubuntu. Other than that, I do have to say, on Ubuntu as a whole, the fact that I run 100% automatic updates on my servers in production, that says a lot about how much I trust your repositories and update work. So all in all, I'm pretty much glad with Ubuntu, but unfortunately, the one gripe that I had with it wasn't resolved in this release. So that's basically my feedback on Mate and Ubuntu as a whole. As for the theme, I always liked this theme. I still like the theme, so the theme can stay, in my opinion.
Good feedback there, Hank. Very good feedback. And I have to know, how are you doing that with Zoom?
It's a little bit of a guilty thing to admit here, but this PC does not run Linux well when streaming. So I'm actually abusing Windows to do this. It's OBS with a virtual webcam routed to the webcam of Zoom.
Very nice. Very nice. Hey, it doesn't matter. I can see you're displaying Linux, and that's all that matters.
If you want to do this, Rocco, there should be a version on Linux using F2L. It's a plugin for OBS, but it's much harder to set up. So I've never actually got it to work, but it does exist. It should be possible in theory to do this.
That is really cool. I love that.
Yeah, and there's actually a really easy script you can write for use for FFmpeg that does that. We use that on Linux Gamecast all the time.
Jill, you said you can write script in the same sentence, and you were like, said it to me, and that doesn't happen.
Oh, I can send it to you.
Okay. Alan, what do you think of that suggestion there for the automatic updates for optional non-security?
Is my audio working okay?
It is. I mean, it's not great, but it's there. Yes.
Sorry.
It's all
I don't
good.
know what. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I was just looking at that dialogue, and I don't know what the rationale behind only doing security updates and other updates just punching you in the face with Update Manager. I guess, expert mode, if you know the file to edit, you can edit it and make it do normal updates as well as security updates. I don't know. I don't know if there's some rationale why we've not done that. It might be interesting to have that as an option, not default, but an option that you could pick for someone who you want to just always be up to date, for sure.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, I agree. The default is perfect how you have it. It's just a shame that it's not optional for that family member that doesn't like to install updates at all.
And the complaint about VPS that gives you too small a boot partition, like file a help request with your VPS provider. That's not an Ubuntu bug.
Yeah, but bottom line remains that there will be FPS providers that do that with a lot of people, and it can be avoided if it would automatically uninstall kernels if the partition is full, or at least doesn't continuously attempt to install them when the partition is full. Because if I were to run an apt remove, it first tries to generate the IMG files again, and then it will... Yeah, it just never really worked reliably. I tried the auto remove suggestion, but it doesn't remove them either. They just stay there until I remove them.
Well, auto remove won't remove the one you're currently running. So if you're currently running a kernel, and so that one won't get removed, and then the next one won't get removed because that's the one you're going to boot into next. And so, yes, you can get into a situation where you've got multiple kernels there. It's not ideal, but you basically just need more space, really, and you need to reboot to your newer kernel, run auto remove, and have more space. I agree.
I'll simulate it in the thing while you guys keep talking. But basically, on the server itself, sometimes it took a while before the server rebooted, so I'll have multiple versions. I always reboot before I run my auto maintenance script again, which has auto remove included. Right. And if I don't have the purge old kernel script in there, it will just keep all of them. I'm not sure how much it's supposed to keep.
Running? Is that 1910 or something older?
That was 1804.
Well, it should. And if it doesn't, then it's a bug and we need to fix it totally.
Alan, in this version specifically, like this Mate, if I run the update now and I reboot it, should auto remove the old one, or is there a minimum amount that it keeps?
I think it keeps the current one and one older.
Okay, so it will be hard to test this live then.
Yeah. So on my experience of using Ubuntu Mate, just today I was using Ubuntu GNOME on this laptop here, and I was playing CSGO with the Destination Linux guys, and GNOME Shell crashes whenever you go full screen in CSGO. So I apt installed Ubuntu Mate desktop, and I logged out and I logged back in again, but using Ubuntu Mate, and I had no such problem. So I will be finding who the director of the Ubuntu desktop team is and chase him down and try and fix this problem.
He's out gallivanting the world, Alan, so you might not find him.
I have a hotline. I will get hold of him.
Yes.
I will figure that out. But yeah, I use Ubuntu Mate on a bunch of machines. I have old machines, super fast new machines, and Ubuntu Mate is my alternative to Ubuntu. If I want something that's not Ubuntu GNOME, then I'll just go for Ubuntu MATE because I know it's super fast.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, hey, that's a cool little use case for rescuing you had to get something done and found a way to work around it. Good stuff. All right. Ben, how are you today, sir?
Just waking up from a nap, and I have to tell you guys, this snapshot of Ubuntu MATE 1910, it was okay, but I had a lot of quirks. I'll give it that. And Alan's probably not going to like what I have to say about it.
Hey, dude, it's all feedback. I'm not going to not like it just because
Here's
it's your
the thing.
experience. If
My
it's your experience,
1910, not just your version, but everyone else's version was blew up on me. Unfortunately, 1910 and I did not get along too great. I had, for some reason, other than the LTS versions, which I did try 1804 as well, still broke on me. So unfortunately, it was a bug crap-riddled mess.
you be specific rather than hand wavy. It was broken, but
well,
actually,
unfortunately, what happened was all I did was I did try installing Pin Guide Builder, but that was just for my own personal reasons. But unfortunately, I installed quite a few things that went fine, but then and running Pin Guide Builder didn't have anything to do with that. But no, I did try this on an Optimus laptop. The Optimus Manager did not come up. The my repositories and then this Etsy apt folder deleted itself for some odd reason, and that wasn't my doing. All I did was run updates. Broken. Everything just went gone. And all I did was do sudo apt-get upgrade and dist upgrade, and bang, everything just gone. So it was some reason everything just went away. I have never had that problem in my life. So all I did was run updates, and this was not to the software center or anything like that or Synaptic. It just went bang, gone.
Doing it using the ZFS, the new experimental ZFS.
No, this was on EXT4. So yeah, all I did was run updates through the terminal and gone. So my entire Etsy apt folder was purely gone. And this was on an SSD, a Samsung
Saying it
Eagle
disappeared. Are you sure you're not having hardware issues? Because that sounds like a hardware thing. I mean, I'm not an Ubuntu guy, but every time I've installed Ubuntu, it's never done that. I mean, I've never had anything go crazy.
And here's the funny thing: this isn't exclusive to Ubuntu. I've tried Gentoo, Arch, other kinds of distros, and the same thing happened. That something just went kablooey.
Then it's probably a hardware issue. You probably got something.
So you think it's a bad hard drive?
I think if it's not a hardware issue, then I think you need to take steps to figure out exactly what triggers.
Well, here's the thing, man.
So if you can get to a state where your system works, and then a command triggers something to happen, and these files go away, what was the difference between when it works and when it doesn't work?
Well, here's the thing. On Gentoo, let's say, and I did try Salient OS, for example. On Salient, everything was working, but then I tried, say, playing a game, and then it froze up and completely froze the system. I had to reboot. So I think he's onto something. I think it is an SSD issue. Because when I boot into Windows, for argument's sake, on my other NVMe disk, and this is a non-NVMe drive I plugged in, and installed your MATE on it, nothing went wrong on the Windows side. So I don't know what the heck is going on with that drive. So, I mean, it might be worth.
I would recommend getting a different drive.
Something like SmartMon tools or SmartCTL against it and running the test just to make sure.
I might try SmartCTL on it just to see if it is the drive, and then we'll see what happens. Yeah, I'll give that a try, and because I mean, it may not be Ubuntu at all. It might just be the drive, but I'll still test it, see what it does.
Excellent.
But yeah, other than the distro blowing up, it was fine.
Hey, that's a great comment.
It was weird that the drive acted up, but yeah, I've never had complaints about Mate until now. So.
Yeah, I would definitely check the drive because that
Yeah.
definitely sounds like you got a
All
hardware
right.
issue.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta get out, but we'll see you later.
All right, Bill, is there anything you want to add?
Not. I mean, a lot of people covered a lot of things, and in many senses, Alan is a much more knowledgeable person than I am.
Well, I was going to get there to him.
Just for Ben, even though
At
he's
the time,
gone.
I have to go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, just on Ben's issue. I mean, that really does sound like that's a hardware issue, especially if it happens with Gentoo and other distros. A lot of people pointed out theming issues, and one of the things that I know Martin has said that he has probably spent more money in sending for other developers out of the contributions that Mate gets to get some theming work done, because it is a very time-consuming thing. And I think Martin will even admit, and I think most of the team are not super duper theming persons. So that's one of the things. And Tyler had some GTK3 issues with some of the theming, and it's one of the complaints you see in the forums a lot, that this theme doesn't work. And it's very difficult, especially.
But Bill, it's almost like any other distro, really. The default theme works perfect. There's not usually any problems with the default theme. It's when you go to change it is when there are issues, or this doesn't work, or this program doesn't use the same theme, or it's off, or whatever. So
yeah,
but that's just like any other distro out there. I mean, including GNOME and KDE and everything else. So like KDE, for example, it's perfect on Breeze, but if you go to switch it from Breeze, you're going to have issues probably. So I don't think that's a big downer.
It's almost like distro maintainers don't test anything other than their own themes.
I don't,
almost.
Alan. One of the other things that people got brought up a lot was the welcome screen and the software boutique. And there's some really unsung heroes. Luke is one of the big unsung heroes in Ubuntu Mate. Martin runs everything, but he does a lot of the administration of the forum, the website, and he is also the one that now is responsible for the development and the beauty that you see in the software boutique and the welcome screen.
Right. Well, from what I understand, he did the animations for that, Bill?
There's a couple people that are working on that, but he is case in point the person that really makes it really nice. There are some issues with the snap, but that's not his fault, and we're working on the issues with the snap, so it doesn't necessarily work outside of Mate at this moment. But I really wanted to point out Luke's work on this project. A lot of great stuff. The software boutique is one of the big selling points. One of the things that recently Martin said that he's changing his tune. For a long time, he said he created this for his family, and he has recently changed his tune that he has actually acknowledged how much bigger this project is and how many people actually use this. And he doesn't really say that it's just for his family anymore. He knows how big this project is and how many people use it. And it is I'm so pleased to be a part of it. The team that works with it is a great team to work for. On this release, Martin brought in Matt to work a lot of the testing. And one of the people I work with is Nikolai, and you may know him as Norbert. He does an incredible amount of stuff, not just with Mate, but throughout Ubuntu testing. And he is so incredibly thorough. So when people say that the distros don't, no one cares, no one tests, no one cares, I can tell you from a factual standpoint that that is not the case.
And let's not forget your contributions as well, Bill.
Yeah, Bill.
Not only in Ubuntu Mate, but in the general community of helping people out, including you helping me out last.
I appreciate the words, but I know everybody talks about imposter syndrome. I know I'm an imposter in that community because I see the brains involved in it. And
Dude,
you have like
you're underplaying your part quite a bit here.
Aw.
There's if you think of any Linux distribution, it doesn't matter which one, as a series of concentric circles, and it's not like a hierarchy where you've got like a god figure at the top, but if you think of it as circles, it kind of makes sense. And at the middle, you've got that core team of developers, and then just around that are super passionate users who are testing and maybe developing new features, maybe doing theme stuff like Luke, like you've mentioned. You're in that group, right? You're like so close to the core. If you said something to Martin was wrong with Ubuntu Mate, he would listen to you. You have sway in this project. And you think of the concentric circles going out from there as passionate users and frequent users, and then some rando on the internet is like out in the periphery of this. It's not to say that their opinions don't matter and your opinions matter more, but the evidence is there. You've done work that has made Ubuntu Mate measurably better. And so people like Martin are going to listen to your opinions. And when he talks about you, he's going to talk about you as someone who is valued in the team. So it's very easy for all of us to have that imposter syndrome. I totally know how that feels. I go to canonical events and there's 500 people standing around me, and I think I'm the biggest idiot in the room because there's a ton of people there who know a lot more than I do. So I completely empathize with that feeling. You totally shouldn't feel like that because your work is totally valued, and we love you.
Yep, absolutely.
Aw. Yay, Bill.
I do appreciate the kind words, Alan. I really do. I sort of didn't know.
I mean it.
I really do appreciate it. I'm going to choke up a little bit, but just to go back and talk about the project for a few minutes. Two other people are Victor and Vlad. They're more on the overall Mate team, but they do so much with it. There's a little bit of confusion almost when I'm like, is this actual Mate stuff or is this Ubuntu Mate stuff? There's so much inner workings. I appreciate everyone coming here and giving their opinions, their views, their experiences. I've written down a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm going to, after tonight, when we get to the second one, I'm going to type all this stuff and send this beautiful little thing to Martin for when he gets back from Vancouver. They'll have this nice list of complaints, but
he will love that. He will absolutely love that. So, I've known Martin for years, and, Ubuntu Mate started partly, the legend goes in my kitchen downstairs. And I talk to Martin on a daily basis, and he values actionable things like hand wavy. My system blew up. Okay, that's interesting, but what does that actually mean? Whereas when someone who knows how to articulate exactly what the problem is, and here is a problem, it manifests itself like this. Here's a good way to reproduce it. We think the impact is this. We think this many hundreds of people or this many thousands of people might be impacted. Allows someone, a developer, to make the decision about, should I care about this? Should I worry about this? Should I focus my attention on this thing? And so you taking those notes and providing them is just super valuable, because the people who are developing this stuff are mostly heads down, like trying to get stuff done, and aren't 100% sure that all of the things they're doing are going to impact everyone. And so it's getting feedback from users that is well written, articulate, and specific, I think is probably the best word, is just it just knocks it out of the park. It's super useful.
Yes, I agree.
Mm.
So, is there anything you want to say about Ubuntu Mate, Alan, to close out?
No, not really.
All right.
Try it out. I like if you're keen on getting involved in something in Linux and you're looking for somewhere to start, Ubuntu Mate is a nice place to start. You know, Bill is a good example of that. Some of the bigger distros, and yeah, Ubuntu Mate is pretty big, but some of the bigger distros, it's quite a hill to climb to get involved. But I think Martin does a very good job of making Ubuntu Mate the on-ramp to getting involved pretty straightforward. And so if you're thinking, you know, this is interesting, I'd like to get involved, I think Mate is a good place to start. Even if Ubuntu Mate isn't like your main thing, and even if you're keen on some other distro or a different flavor of Ubuntu, or even something completely unrelated to Ubuntu, that's all cool. But Mate is a vibrant community of forward-thinking people who want the best for their distro. So it's a good place to start.
All right, there you go. There's our thoughts on Ubuntu Mate 1910. We will be putting out another distro for our distro challenge, but we will save that for the later show. So we don't exactly need to do it here. So I got a question for you guys. I've been having issues with and seeing as how Alan's here, it's perfect. I've been I've been having issues with 1910 that I didn't see in 1904. And I am not sure exactly what to do and as far as going forward. I'm having stuttering on videos. When I open Audacity, I am having lag hesitation for probably a couple seconds as I move from one spot to another. And this is all happening after I upgraded to 1910.
Rocco, what are you using? Which desktop?
Pop OS, which
Okay.
is GNOME. So, I mean, that included, 3.3 GNOME. So, I don't know if it's a GNOME issue. I don't know if it's an issue. I just know that I'm experiencing these lag hesitations in certain programs. Usually that involves either video or audio, and I'm not sure exactly what to do about it. I don't know. I don't even know if there's a way to downgrade to 19. Or if I have to reinstall something, or if I should just continue on and try to pinpoint the problems. Who's got some suggestions?
Before people start jumping in with tech support stuff, sorry, Popey. I will tell you that, so I'm running Ubuntu 19.10 on my laptop, and I did an upgrade from 1904, and I had a lot of those same exact issues. I was having a lot of IO type issues where if there was any kind of disk activity, videos would stutter, audio would stutter, the UI would be unresponsive. Specifically, like I had sync thing running and it does a deep, like a folder directory scan when it starts up. Like nothing, it would just stop, like the whole system.
I also had 2 hard lockups upgrading to
me, and I did as well. What I did was I actually did a fresh install of 1910, and I've been running that for about a week now, and I have had 0 of those issues. So I think there's some cruft that got left over from the upgrade to from 1904 to 1910. That was, and I can't tell you exactly what it was. I know, Alan looked at a couple of the reports that went in from my system, but I can't tell you specifically, but I can tell you just having wiped it and put fresh 1910, and maybe that would be the same for Pop. It's been 100% different and completely, like no crashes, no lockups, no stuttering, none of that.
Yeah, I'm not looking to distro hop. I'm just looking to stop having the issues, because that's why I don't distro hop on this, because it is the main machine. I need it to be solid. I need it to be stable, and I surely need it to not hesitate. definitely powerful enough where it shouldn't.
So there's a few things. So first of all, you're running Pop! OS 1910, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, being frank, Pop! OS is not Ubuntu.
Correct.
And so, I know some people will say Pop! OS is Ubuntu with a theme. It's Ubuntu with a different installer. It's Ubuntu with ... differences. Some differentiation, right? But it isn't Ubuntu. It uses many of the same components, and it is entirely possible that the issues that Eric sees on 1910 Ubuntu and that you see on 1910 Pop! OS may have the same root cause. That is entirely possible. And it could be something in an Ubuntu package. It could be the kernel, could be anything, right? I think what is a couple of things to think on is when you report an issue like this to a developer, what you want to do is provide a reproducible set of steps. Like, when I do A, then B, then C, this happens. But when I do the same set of steps on another release, another distro, the previous release of the distro I'm currently on, whatever it is, when I do those same 3 steps, it happens differently. And so it's a regression, or my expectations are not being met, right? And if you can have something where you can do those same set of steps and it fails in the same way every single time, or reproducibly within a certain, number of percentage likelihood, it happens enough, then that's a good bug report to file. If you don't know where to file it, you could just file it against Ubuntu. You could just type Ubuntu bug and just send the bug to Ubuntu, and we'll figure out where it goes. I'm happy for you to throw the link towards me, and I'll help to put it in the right place and poke the right people. The other thing, between Disco and Eon, so between 1904 and 1910, 1904 was on 5.0 Linux kernel, and 1910 is 5.3. And I know 5.3 has a lot of new shiny that a lot of people love, but it also may well introduce new stuff. It probably would be worth installing an older kernel. We have a thing called the mainline kernel PPA, just to eliminate the kernel from any of this. There's a kernel you can install from the mainline kernel PPA, and it's a build of the upstream Linux kernel, untouched by us, no patches, and you could try one of those kernels. All you're doing is downloading a couple of debs and installing them, reboot to that different kernel. If the same thing happens, go back to the kernel that's in Disco, so that's 5.0.0. Grab that one, put that one on your system, reboot to that. If it works okay, then something has changed between 5.0 and 5.3. And if you have time, you can bisect and go to the kernels in between and see if you can narrow down, like maybe it only arrived in 5.3, maybe it happened in 5.1, but you don't know that because you went straight from 5.0 to 5.3. And so that mainline kernel PPA that I know a lot of people use to get bleeding edge kernels, the actual purpose of it is exactly this, is to be able to install different kernel versions and then go to the middle one in between 2 versions and figure out if that one has the same problem. And if it doesn't, halfway between these 2 kernels, and then halfway, and you bisect between the kernels until you find the range of kernels that have a problem. Now, this is all assuming it's a kernel problem. It might not be. It might be Pulse Audio. It could be anything, right? But that's a good place to start, because if it's got hard lockups, that makes me think of the kernel. If it's got audio glitches and lag and I/O, these are all kind of pointing me towards the kernel as possibly something to blame, because it's not just Pulse and it's not just audio. I think that's where I would look first.
Very nice. I mean, I will definitely take that route, and maybe I'll get that PPA. And
so I'd be happy to do a 5-minute video showing how to install like the kernel PPA. It's the ludicrous thing is it's called the mainline PPA, and it's not a PPA. It's just a big directory full of kernels. It's not actually a PPA that you add. It's a directory. You go and find a kernel, you download the deb, and then you install it. But I'm happy to walk you through that, or just make a 5-minute video that answers whatever questions you have, and then other people can use that same thing.
Awesome.
And so, Popey, you make videos?
Right? Not very often. I try
Awesome.
not to. I had to have a haircut recently because I felt I wasn't looking good enough on camera.
I was being facetious. No, if you guys haven't seen,
They're wonderful.
that's self-image is a whole different topic. But
Yeah.
If you haven't seen them, just a quick shout out. So Alan's been doing a lot of really great streams, and so definitely worth checking out.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a 2-minute video that Alan did about bug reporting, and he did an hour live stream that we were on, and that's a little bit too long, but the 2-minute video is pretty concise and very well done.
Well, we'll have to put
throw a video out kind of thing.
We'll have to put a link in the YouTube chat for that video, or for Alan's channel, and then you can go watch them all. Maybe this new adding a new kernel thing video that waiting for it. All right. So the Pinebook Pro laptop recently came out. Did anybody get one? Anybody pre-order it and get?
I believe Vash has one. I know that Cheese Bacon has one and has been doing a lot of stuff and a lot of testing.
I was just wondering how it actually played out, like in your hands with.
Yeah, I was intending to, and then my car started asking for a lot of money. So
I know that. So just to talk for Cheese, I know he said that the battery life is incredible, and he's been playing with he's been working with the one of the Manjaro guys who's building a lot of the Manjaro builds. Been testing a lot of those. But he said the battery life is pretty awesome in general, no matter what you're running. He was having a little bit of an issue with the Palm. He had to get used to that. And I think he's also doing the UK style keyboard because it wasn't available. He didn't get they didn't have the US. They only had the UK style keyboard when he ordered. But the initial
ANSI.
reports, the ANSI, I'm sorry, the ISO versus ANSI. The initial reports I've seen have been really good. I wish Vash was here because I know he has one.
Vash.
I'm here. Yep.
Oh, you're there? Okay.
Yeah, I've only got the chance to mess with it a little bit. That's one of the things I'm hoping to get back toward a bit more now, as things have kind of chilled out a little bit in my off hours. But I need to give some other ISOs a shot and really find the one that really kind of dials everything in for me and give that a shot. But I mean, the actual hardware, like the physical, device itself, good keyboard, seems to be pretty good trackpad. The it doesn't feel flimsy or anything like that. I mean, it feels like a good, ready to go laptop. It's light, it fits in my bag, it's really thin, and I have noticed a pretty good battery life so far. So I've been satisfied just from that perspective. I just haven't got the chance to really put it through its paces software wise just yet.
I have a question for people who are running ARM hardware. So something I saw come up was someone was looking to get a particular piece of software that apparently doesn't exist for ARM 64. And I hadn't really thought of that. So if you're running a Pinebook or something like that, is the software availability an issue?
So Eric, on like a Pi 3, let's say, that's running Mate, there's a lot of stuff in the Ubuntu repositories. If you're running Raspbian, it's probably, it's not, you'd think there'd be more, but it doesn't seem to work out that way. And then when you start going away from those, it starts to get really questionable. But a lot of the times that I've seen, especially if you're running some of the newer hardware like a Pi 4, you're kind of stuck in Raspbian right now. There's
So did I see an announcement that Ubuntu was going to do something more with ARM 64? I thought maybe.
So every package that builds in the Ubuntu archive, all the ones that are supported in main, build for 32-bit Intel, 64-bit Intel, ARM HF, which is the Pi 2, and ARM 64, which is the Pi 4 and friends. So unless there's some reason it can't be built for ARM, if it's open source, we build it for every architecture. And so everything in the archive should be apt installable on a Pinebook if you're using Ubuntu.
So then it's maybe going to be more of a third party kind of thing, whether they choose to.
That's the tricky thing is third party. Well, there's a few problems here. One is third party. So for example, Skype or Spotify, they just flat out don't build an ARM64 binary. And so you cannot install Skype and you cannot install Spotify. They're just not options. If someone has an open source piece of software and it's in a PPA, it might be, but by default, we don't build all PPAs for ARM64 because it eats up all the builders. And we have a limited amount of build architecture available. But if you request it, you can have packages built for ARM64. So for example, Regolith, I believe the Regolith PPA builds for ARM and ARM64. And so you could install the i3 Regolith setup because that PPA has it enabled, but not every PPA does. So if you're veering outside of the repository, then yeah, you can find there's limited software available.
Absolutely. And does Snap cover ARM at all?
Snaps use exactly the same build architecture as the Ubuntu archive. So the same four main ones: Intel 3264, ARM 3264, and S390 for mainframes and PowerPC. But it's optional. The developer can choose which architectures they want to support. So, for example, I can't think of any. Some games, for example, they don't even bother doing ARM builds because they just know nobody is going to be gaming on a Raspberry Pi.
Right. I was just trying to think of a way like how you could bridge, like, is there a way? Because I mean, when I look at universal package formats like Snap and App Image and all that, like, is that a way to sort of bridge that gap between the first party repository and a third party? Yeah.
I mean, we provide the facility, and there's a new thing that's landed in the tools that we've made recently that make it much easier for you to build for what we call foreign architectures. So you could sit on your AMD 64 laptop and type a command, and it will dispatch your source code to Launchpad, build it as a snap, and then grab the snap out of Launchpad and put it on your local hard drive. And that would be built for all of the 6 main architectures. But that doesn't get over the fact that there's proprietary software that will never be built for those architectures because it's just too smaller market to make it worthwhile. Or some of them just don't. They use proprietary libraries that don't build for ARM64. Like Steam. You're never going to get Steam working on a Pinebook because they just don't build A, Steam itself, and B, none of the game developers publish ARM64 binaries in the Steam store. So yeah, you're not.
So I'm just curious. Yeah, and so what I keep seeing is there's a tremendous focus on the Pinebook's hardware, which is great for that price point, and apparently it's it's very, very high quality. But I guess I just haven't seen enough people explain how they use it day to day, and do they run into these kind of things. So I'm curious, maybe Ryan will get to that or something like that. Someone who has one, Vash, maybe if you play around with it some more. I'd definitely be interested to find out, like, is that something you're running into? Like, oh, I can't do this thing because the software isn't available.
I think if you think about the last time you did a clean install of a distro, and then carefully think through all of the things you layer on top of that. Like if you typed apt install, foobar baz, chances are those things will be built for AMD 64. sorry, ARM64. If you're using Ubuntu or Debian, the second you go outside that bubble, that's where you're likely to have problems. And so as soon as you have to add a remote repository or visit a vendor's website and download a binary, that's when you're going off piste, and you're likely to find applications will just not be available to you. However, if you are, a fully paid up member of the FSF, and you only care about open source software, and everything you build and everything you run on your machine is open source, or rather free software, then you will probably be okay, because chances are whatever compiler you're using will build ARM64 binaries on your machine. It might mean you have to build some such stuff from scratch. It might mean that you go to GitHub, and whatever software you're looking at, there are binaries available for Intel, but not binaries for ARM64. But you can get the source code, and you could probably build it yourself. So there's always that extra barrier if you're going on one of these niche architectures. But for most people who use the standard Linux tools like a terminal, a web browser, a couple of chat applications, they're probably going to be okay. IDEs, they'll probably be all right. It's when you start going down the route of stepping outside the boundaries of the repository, that's when it starts to get a problem.
Well, Alan, you mentioned it, but I'm kind of trying to understand it or wrap my mind around it. You mentioned Spotify, maybe not be one of those programs but Spotify is Snap, so you can't install the Snap version on an ARM or on a Pinebook.
Because so whenever you install, and I don't think this isn't unique to Snaps. Like if you think of any package manager, at the point when you say install this software package, and think like beyond the package manager, your computer is going to go to some repository of some kind, whether it's a FlatHub, an archive, or the Snap Store, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's going to get the package for the architecture you're running. And if the developer has not chosen to publish for that architecture in that repository, then that's it. And so if you go to be specific about the Snap side, if you go to snapcraft.io/Spotify, you'll get the store page for Spotify. And in the top right-hand corner, there's a little drop-down for install, and it shows you the list of architectures. And I'm pretty sure it only says AMD64 in there. Whereas if you go for something like snapcraft.io/Mutt, the popular email client, the console email client, that's built from source, and that's built for every architecture. So you go snapcraft.io/Mutt, hit the button, you'll see in the architecture list is all the 6 popular architectures. Because it's open source and it's pretty straightforward, and it doesn't have anything CPU specific in it, so it builds for every architecture. And so you'll see packages for all of them. But for all of the package formats, they all will install. I mean, you can override them. So on an AMD64 system, you could say, get me that i386 package, because the processor can run 64-bit and 32-bit binaries. But you can't, on an AMD64 machine, say, go and get me that ARMHF binary and just run it, because the CPU natively doesn't run that code.
Right. So basically, it's a hit or miss with any of the package managers, whether it be Snap or apt or any of them, if they're going to work.
Well, it's only hit and miss once you go outside the repositories.
Right.
And for I don't know how it works in Arch, because I suspect some packages in the AUR are built in the cloud and some are built on a developer's machine. And if that's the case, I don't think the AUR fully supports other architectures. So you might be even more limited in the number of architectures. But I may be completely wrong because I don't run Arch. But certainly for Ubuntu and Debian, and probably Fedora, and almost certainly OpenSUSE, they have a broad set of open source software in their archive for ARM64. And so you could have a perfectly usable Pine 64, ARM64 processor laptop and get your job done, probably.
On Arch, if you have from AUR, it's actually everything is built on your system.
Oh, of course, yes, of course.
But repositories, the main repositories, those I believe are only built for Intel x64 or whatever, the AMD 64 and 32-bit, or no, actually 32-bit, no, just 64-bit architecture of AMD 64. So what we now use.
All right. Is there anything else somebody wants to bring up before we head out of here? Any pressing topics? All right.
Well, I just want to mention that the Pine 64, I think, is an interesting project that I've had. I think this would, when I finally get the Pine 64, that will be my 4th ARM laptop. And they've had a dodgy reputation, not Pine, but ARM in laptops has had a dodgy reputation for a long time, and partly because of this whole software availability problem, partly because they don't have a lot of horsepower, they often don't have a huge amount of RAM, they can feel slow and sluggish, you can't buy them in huge numbers, so there are lots of challenges, shall we say, running an ARM based laptop. But I think what Pine are doing with the Pine 64 is exciting because they are iterating on the stuff that they did previously. I have the old white 32-bit Pine book, and I think the Pine 64 is a good step forward from there. And if people buy them, then potentially there'll be another generation which may be faster, may have more RAM, may have a better battery, might have a nicer screen, and so on and so on. But it's a fledgling thing. There's not a lot of ARM laptops out there. So, I would cut the Pine people some slack when reviewing one of their devices.
Good advice. Good advice. I'd like to have Lucas on here come talk to us about the. If we can make that happen.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's going to wrap it up for us. We are out of time. It is 4:59. But everybody gets the last word. Peter, you're muted, dude.
Somebody muted me. Okay. I would love a Pinebook Pro, but I've already got a really good Chromebook which suits my needs. It's a choice of money. Yeah. So I can't justify buying one because I already got a device that works for me. But by the way, thanks for the afternoon show. It's been great. I love being here.
Awesome. Eris, last word.
Thank you very much for the stream. And thank you to Bill and Alan for talking about Ubuntu MATE with us. And thank you to everybody who works for MATE. This has been a great release for me. Much better than other times as far as the BRIS menu. And hopefully everything works out for the next release, the LTS.
Ash, last word.
Well, thanks for the stream, Rocco. I guess I'll see you in just a couple hours, unless the after show on this one is quite long.
Maybe. Who knows? Jill, last word.
Aw. Thank you again to Bill and Popey for showing up and everyone here. This has been a wonderful show, and I think it'll be so helpful for Wimpy and the Ubuntu MATE team. And Bill, I just want to say thank you. You're in all the same communities that I am, and it's so nice to hear your feedback, your comments, and just having you there, whether it be on Jupiter Broadcasting, on Big Daddy, on all the things. So thank you so much. You're awesome.
Thank you for the kind words.
Tony, last word.
Hi. Thanks, Rocco, for doing the European edition. I'm able to keep awake a lot easier. I'll hopefully be here for the later one, and I'll try to keep awake for that as well. Just before I go, I'd just like to have a quick thank you to Alan for his help with my keyboard issue last week. I have bought a new keyboard, a Logitech MK470, and running Ubuntu 19.10 GNOME without any issues whatsoever. So thank you for that. I don't know how long I'll be on it, but we'll see.
So basically, you're saying thank you for me advising you to throw away your keyboard and get another one.
Yes. I had been thinking about buying a new keyboard for a while, so it was a shove in the right direction.
Oh,
It was
that was his justification. Right.
It was sound advice.
yeah,
Advice.
It was.
funny, Tony. Cool.
Bill, last word.
Thank you, Rocco. Thank you for the kind words, Popey and Jill. Thank you for everybody for the input you guys have given. It's really been great. Peter, one thing about the Pinebook Pro, I've heard great stuff that people running Chromium OS on it, getting perfect performance, and you just pop out an SD card, throw a different SD card in there, and you can change distros on the fly. One other thing I just want to say while Popey's here, if you haven't listened to the new user error, it may not be the most family-friendly thing, but you will find out why ghosts are the apex predator. So,
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, obviously. Eric, last word.
Great to see everybody. This is, as always, the highlight of my week, and I get it twice this week, which is awesome.
Yay.
And thanks to the Mate team. They are a great example of innovating in their own space and then things sort of bleeding over and contributing upstream and having good ideas that affect multiple other things. And I love that about that project. So great job. And I'll see you all in 3 hours.
Tyler? You're either, I don't think you're muted on Zoom, but you might be muted on your mic.
Oh, right. I muted using the button in KDE. Anyway, thanks for the show. 2 shows this week. Looking forward to the one tonight. Glad my voice has been working well for me today. I've been sick after the weekend at Ohio Linux Fest last weekend. Con crud, always hits you. And enjoyed playing with Ubuntu Mate, and I'm looking forward to playing with the next Ubuntu, whichever one is chosen in tonight's show.
Well, thank you for being here. Hopefully you guys get better. Jill, you were sick as well. So, hope you guys feel better.
Thank you.
Cubicle Mate. You're up, sir. Last word.
It's Cubicle Mate. You have to say it right. Thanks again for having me. I always enjoy these my nerd meetings, and I look forward to this evening when we get to find another distribution and talk some more Linuxy things. So and thank you, Mr. Pope, for being here for kind of keeping us all straight. So we know what the snaps. We know that the snap details. So thanks.
Nate, you look like you're on I don't know, the Starship Enterprise or something.
Yay.
It's your background, dude.
Yeah, it's a new system I've put together. It's not done yet. It's all kind of up on the table until I get it put away. So
it also looks like you're a separated, disembodied head floating around in your room.
It kind of does. This black shirt.
Well, I like to keep things dark. I'll change my shirt for tonight.
There you go. Adam, last word, brother.
I'm just sorry. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Disembodied floating heads are, totally my bag.
But I'm not a ghost, and I'm not the apex predator. So,
Adam,
thanks for doing this early because I'll probably be asleep later. I appreciate everybody showing up. Bill, Wimpy, all the people who work on Ubuntu Mate, you guys are doing a fantastic job, and keep it up. Thanks everybody for showing up. Good times.
Big Pod, last word.
Yeah, thanks for having this, and I don't know what to say. Hopefully in next weeks I will be able to be awake at 2 in the morning my time. School makes me sleepy.
All right, Hank, last word.
All right, thanks for having me on again, and thank everyone for being here. It's always fun to have these Europe editions. Would love it if they were more often, but I understand that's not gonna be that easy for you. But that's my real last word. I want to give a shout out to all the maintainers of the Ubuntu repositories. It's a job that I know is often overlooked, and I personally have the definition of a stable or unstable distro based on how well the repositories are maintained and how likely it is that it's going to break if I click update. And Ubuntu is one of those few distros where I blindly click on update without testing anything first, even on production. And there's not many distros that give me that kind of confidence. So big shout out to everyone for their continued good work on those repository updates.
Awesome. Opie, last word.
Thank you, Hanky. I will pass that on to our internal people because they love hearing about that because they don't get out much. And when we let them out, they don't talk about computers with other people. So it's really nice when someone outside the company says nice things. So I appreciate that, and I will pass it on. So yeah, all hail Ubuntu MATE.
Yay!
Yes. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you for everybody showing up. I appreciate it. Sorry for the lackluster start, beginning, and all of the technical issues. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but at least we got it figured out. Thank you to all of the devs again for Ubuntu MATE. Bill, thank you for your work on it as well. Alan, you as well.
I did nothing.
Imposter Syndrome. Eric, thank you for helping me out today. And I think that's going to be it for us. Oh, Linux Spotlight. So Linux Spotlight this past week was Bernard Landauer from Manjaro.
Ooh.
That was he is an amazing guy. That's all.
Nice.
This coming week is Cheese Bacon from Jupiter Broadcasting on Linux Spotlight. So
one of
he
my
will
favorite
be
people.
on Wednesday. Yep.
Cool.
And that is going to wrap it up for us until the regular biddle in less than 3 hours. Till then, long live Linux.
We love you, everyone.
See yous.